is a deep dark secret around the creation of Georgie. A secret inspiration that Moriah Elizabeth does not want you to know about.
Okay, perhaps there is no secret ancient photograph of a pineapple duck from which Moriah Elizabeth has stolen her inspiration for Georgie. But that will surely not stop me from trying to create one today. And hey, who knows, perhaps you will even get to see this video. If Jessie can dream of becoming a rabbit, I can dream of Moriah Elizabeth watching one of my videos. So one of her most beloved creations in realistic style and in monochrome. Let's see if we can get her nightmare come to life. I'm not very nice, am I? And for all of you who have no idea what I'm talking about here, Moriah Elizabeth is a very successful YouTuber. She's making a lot of things, for example squishy makeovers. Everything she makes is very colorful, very playful, lots of sweet stuff like that. And she creates a lot of original characters. Georgie probably one of the most famous ones. But before we can start with our loving ode towards Georgie, we have to understand his anatomy. For that, I took a picture of Moriah Elizabeth's Instagram account from the time when she released the Georgie plushie. We have to be careful not to fall for a forgery because there are a lot of them out there. And now we will add another one. Anyway, let's start by marking all the characteristics that we will have to consider. And yes, quite obviously, Georgie is a pineapple. That will be fun. Well, ironically, have you ever seen the skin of a pineapple? A lot of detail. Looking forward to that. Well, I did that to myself. And then there are those cute little leaves on the top of his head. They are a little bit smaller than regular. We will take that into account. They are also more round, not as pointy, probably for security reasons. We will keep them more realistic. And then, as redundancy is a good thing, in addition to those leaves that are stand-ins for hair, we also have a little lock of actual hair. It's not green, it's not leaves, so I will interpret this as actual hair. Won't look strange at all. Another important detail. Eyebrows. I think we all agree, it's not a pineapple without eyebrows. Then there's the theoretical highlight, the duck face on the fruit, but that does not look that outlandish anymore, does it? But we have only seen half of it anyway, yet. Now we have its little wings, followed closely by my personal favorite, the belly button. Probably the source of endless nightmares in the coming nights, I'm sure of that. And then we have the duck feet, they complete the concept. And with that we have identified about everything. 8 different things we have to consider. Let me conclude the session by doing a couple of hand gestures. I have no idea what I was thinking when I made these. And then let's get started. The picture itself is completely black and white, but the paper I chose for this is more of a yellowish type. The reason for this is I wanted to go with this a little old look, you know, vintage old photograph style. For that, this paper color I think is pretty good. Am I happy with my choice overall to go with this old photograph style? Well, let's talk about that later. As for every picture, of course, I have reference pictures also here. Pictures for a pineapple, for the duck parts, everything that I want to put into a realistic picture. I need references for these kinds of pictures because I'm not the kind of artist that can pull all of these details out of thin air. I wish I was. But what's really cool and fun about this project is a pineapple is different than a face. If I put just eyes somewhere in the face where they don't belong, people normally notice. If I'm not perfect with the skin of a pineapple, people won't necessarily notice this. This gives me a lot of freedom that with portraits I normally don't have. And that's something that I immediately felt. What I am drawing here, that's not a natural thing, that's not out there in nature. So I can draw it however I want to. When I start my portraits, there's normally a lot of measuring, proportions, sizes, all of that. I don't need to do that here, so I'm actually pretty quick with the construction drawing. I was pretty confused in the beginning here, because yeah, when you pretty much always draw the same things, in my case portraits, at some point you always tend to start the same way. Back when I did live streams, my starting point became the eyes. And that has a very simple reason. The eyes are quite catchy. They give life to a picture, and when people came into the live stream, I wanted them to stay. Probably won't surprise you. And drawing eyes which have a lot of life in there tends to be more interesting than lips or ears or something. Here though, I panicked and continued with the construction. And here you were thinking we were done with that part. And at this point I stopped like a deer in the headlights. You see, I only have one eye. As reference, I mean. If you look at the head of a duck, it is very narrow. That means the eyes are very much on the sides of the head. If you face a duck in battle or something, you can't actually see that much of their eyes. And that is not the case when you put those eyes on a pineapple. It is very round, you see a lot more of the eyes. So I took one eye that looked like I needed it, and then I mirrored it on the other side. But that also means I cannot draw it the same way, because I have to consider all the light reflections and all of that stuff. Things I normally don't do. So I already started considering how to do that with that first eye, which is the reason for that long decision break. I love contrast, and if you draw something realistically, in my opinion, there is almost nothing as important as contrast. Sometimes even more important than detail. And that does not only mean the blackness level of your pencils, that also means the other side of the spectrum, the white. And for that you should consider a white pen. Gel pen in this case makes your life so much easier. You can just draw on your pencil and get that white back up again. On this more yellowish paper that obviously is easier and more effective to bring in white. I already started testing out my whole spectrum here in the eye to just know what I can do from black to white, but I think it also already adds a lot of life into the picture. There's actually not too much to say about drawing the beak, other than here I had to be more careful with the highlights, so I could not just use the gel pen. I needed less extreme, less in-your-face whites, so I also included colored pencils and chalk and pastel. All white, but I had more control over them. The goal was to show different textures and not making it all look like wet plastic or something. Yeah, the leaves, that's when it started to dawn on me what I have gotten myself into. I mostly draw humans, I don't draw much else, I don't even like to draw their clothes. I mean portraits. I normally don't even draw anything below the neck. And suddenly I draw something like this with pineapple skin and a beak and hair and webbed feet, mostly stuff I've never drawn before. And the viewer has to be able to distinguish between all of them visually. The beak can't look like the skin or the feet and so on and so on. And we're drawing monochrome, we don't have color to show this. So we have to convey all those differences in visual texture. And yeah, I thought a long time about it. I experimented a little bit, but mostly I just jumped into it, how I mostly do, and I just tried something. I tried to make the leaves look a little bit more stringy than the skin, and I have to say, for the most part, for me it works. But feel free to agree or disagree down in the comments. Those little leaves on its head are the creature's hair. At least they are stand-in for that. But there's actually real hair there also. This little lock here, my interpretation at least, is that it's hair, so let's draw it as such. Hair is not exactly my favorite thing to draw ever. I actually really hated it at some point, so I powered through, tried to learn some techniques. So by now it works okay, and also in this case, I'm pretty happy with it. Now I went back to the beak and started to add a little more highlights to make it even more contrasty, because I realized when I started with the pineapple skin that would have a lot of detail, would get really busy, and I definitely wanted to include that. But with all the busy pineapple skin, that could result in other details being swallowed by it. You know, with the skin being so busy that you cannot even understand, cannot see the eyes anymore or those eyebrows. And to be completely honest, the end product is not perfect in that regard. I thought a lot about this, but I did not really find a way to mitigate this issue and to make those things stand out from each other more. I could have made thick outlines or something like that, but that would not have fit with the realistic approach. But you see how it will end up and you can judge by yourself. And then I could finally start with the pineapple skin, and I was really afraid of that. There is so much detail. I'm not the most patient person and there was a lot of it and a lot of the same. But I quickly got really excited because it kind of worked. I was really happy with it, and I think it reads as pineapple skin, which is not too easy of a feat. Well, at least for somebody who has never really drawn anything like that before. So I really got concentrated into the zone, so let's watch that together. After all, it's not that often that I'm so happy with something I drew. And then we finally reached the wings, and these are small duckling wings, not big ones. There are three main reasons for that. Reason number one was I did not really want to include feathers at this point. That would have been an additional texture, and I already had this hair-like structure in the picture, so that's what I went with here. Reason number two, pretty simple. Georgie looks like a young, not an old duck. But most important, and a personal reason number three, we were very fortunate to be able to look after a little duckling for a couple of days only, but still, our little Chewie. It was around Star Wars Day, and I wanted to remember them here. And the rest of the skin and also the second wing, let's speed that up too. The feet actually were kind of almost boring in comparison to all the rest. That's probably also the reason why I did not take too much time with them. I did not invest nearly as much in them as in other parts, but I think it's fine, it's not terrible. So let's just do some more corrections here, and yeah, then we can start with the background. Okay, so now there was a little conflict. As I talked about with a lot of highlights, it can look quite wet. So the whole animal looked a little bit wet after all. So what to do? Normally I should go and reduce the highlights, make them less sharp, less prominent, reduce the wetness in that way. An alternative solution would be to just draw water in the background as a reason why it is wet. Would be easier. So guess what I went with? And there we have him, our Georgie in real life, with all his aspects, without the color. Honestly, I really thought this would become some kind of abomination or something, but I actually think he's really cute. It really surprised me. But I honestly don't know if anybody else but Moriah Elizabeth would find this to be creepy. But you let me know down in the comments, what's your opinion? Is this creepy, cute, none of the above? But I have to admit, this was really fun to create this creature for real life, how it could look in real life. So I could see myself doing stuff like this again, but the question is, do you want to see it? So let me know down in the comments. Also, if you know some kind of beast that you would like for me to translate into the real world. It doesn't have to be a creation from Moriah Elizabeth, obviously, although she has kind of a pickle that could be one of our targets here. But now a huge thank you to you, who actually has made it through the whole video. I hope you consider giving me that like and perhaps that subscription. I would love to see you again. But that's all for now. Have the greatest of days and goodbye.